Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us live today. Um, Today I have a bit of a confession to make. This has been kind of an off week for me. I'm usually very structured, but maybe it's spring fever or a little stress or some external circumstances that change my availability. It happens, but I've been inconsistent. Now, specifically for me, this showed up in my marketing. Meant that I didn't really go into the week with a clear plan. I skipped a day of social media posts. I didn't add pictures to my posts like I usually do. So, not huge, right? But it got me thinking this is something that gets businesses in trouble all the time: inconsistency, especially in bookkeeping and decision making. Inconsistency starts off small, but leads to bigger problems down the road. I was recently doing a QuickBooks cleanup, and this client knew that their numbers weren't accurate, but didn't know why. Money was coming in, transactions were being recorded. But when I started digging, I found that income was being recorded inconsistently. Expenses were being categorized differently month to month, and payments weren't always being applied the same way. The results were kind of what you'd expect from that kind of inconsistency. Sometimes the same income was being recorded twice. Um, so that would be like recording when invoices are marked as paid, and then again when the actual deposit hits the bank. Instead of matching the deposits to the payments, they were entered separately. So on paper, it looked like the business was making more than it actually was. And of course, that was only happening sometimes. Sometimes it was done correctly, but the client couldn't understand why their income showed higher when they knew that they were running out of money. Now, on the expense side, it really wasn't clearer because there were multiple categories for the same type of expense. So nothing was grouped in a way that made sense. Some categories had completely unrelated transactions mixed in, which makes it almost impossible to see where, like, what money is actually being spent and where. Um, so now you've got transactions sitting in places that they don't belong, balances that don't really mean anything, and reports that can't be trusted. This is what happens when things are done inconsistently over time. When your consistency breaks down like that, your books stop being a tool. They stop being a tool that you can use and start just becoming noise. And this can really impact your business. So today we're going to talk about consistency, how lack of consistency affects not just your books, but your entire business. We're going to cover three types of inconsistency and how they show up in your books, in your decision making, and in your bottom line. First, I'm getting myself a little drink of water. So first, process inconsistency. This is when things are done differently every time or some of the time. So one month you record income one way, the next month or the next day it's handled slightly differently. Payments get applied to invoices sometimes, other times they don't. Sometimes expenses get based on or get categorized based on memory, instead of just a standard. So there's no single repeatable way of doing things. It just might depend on the moment. Sometimes it's because you're stressed or you're busy, you're not feeling well, or you just don't have a system. Now that turns into data inconsistency. Um, then your books aren't just messy, they're unreliable. Your income is overstated, your expenses are scattered, they don't make sense. Your reports don't tie together cleanly. So even if you run say your profit and loss report, you can't really trust the numbers that you're looking at. That leads to number three, decision inconsistency. Um, if your numbers aren't clear, you hesitate, you second guess, you make decisions based on incomplete information. You might have to change things partway through. You make a decision, you realize it doesn't work, and you have to try something different. This affects your pricing, your hiring, your spending. And over time, that's where profit starts to slip. So when we talk about inconsistency, it's not just an organizational issue. It's a business performance issue because it actually turns into missed expenses that don't get accounted for. So you can't plan accurately or understand what it actually costs to run your business. It could be misleading revenue, numbers that look higher or lower than they really are. So you feel either more profitable than you are and you spend too much money, or you think you're less profitable than you are and you hold back on spending money when it could be beneficial. It leads to pricing decisions that are based on numbers that aren't accurate. So you're setting prices without a clear understanding of what it costs to provide your services and what's actually going to be profitable. Now you're not just dealing with messy books, you're making real business decisions based on unreliable information. Now, consistency is what makes your numbers reliable, and reliable numbers are what makes good decisions possible. So if your books feel a little off, you feel like you can't trust them, it might not be just one big issue. It might be small inconsistencies that have built up over time. The good news is that it's totally fixable. You don't have to overhaul everything overnight. You just need to identify where things are breaking down, and put a consistent structure in place. Now, if you want a second set of eyes on your books, to see what's actually going on behind the scenes, I'm happy to take a look. I can usually spot where things are breaking down pretty quickly. No pressure, just a clear, grounded assessment of what's working, what's not, and what it would take to clean it up so that your books are useful to you. Because at the end of the day, you shouldn't have to guess your way through your numbers. You should be able to use them to make clear, confident decisions. So thanks for being with us today. Have a great weekend.